All right, is this thing on? All right, that sounds good. All right. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Next Level YouTube channel. Today is pretty special for me. I am here with Justin and Tyson Thomas of Thomas Racing Factory. You guys have heard about the glide skids. I am rocking one this year and absolutely loving it. Today, we are going to go over an install video of how that thing goes into these sleds and how we make badass snowmobiles. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the tools. And I've got Justin right here to tell us about what tools are necessary for this install of you guys' amazing skid.
Hey guys, so first thing, you'll want to have your wrenches, 13, 17, and then with your skid it comes with this quick adjust link wrench to adjust your rear link and stuff, but you'll want a 6mm Allen and an 8 or a 5/16 Allen. That will go with your 17 with an extension, doesn't matter the length, 3/16 drill bit, a deburring tool. If you have it, you can use a 3/8 ratchet or a gun, riveter, and a drill to be able to drill to mount your tunnel hardware.
All right, and then depending on the shock setup you have, what have you guys done differently here? I see we've got some Fox air shocks here. What did you do differently to incorporate that set of shocks into the glide skid?
So, yep, today we got the Fox floats air shock. With our skid, typically we offer the exit shocks, but today we're installing the Fox floats. They perform really well in the glide. To accept the Fox float shocks, we have to put this pull rod in that allows more room for the e-ball chamber to fit in the suspension.
Yeah. Yep, right there.
And yeah, they work really well.
And otherwise, the center shock or the front track shock, it mounts the same.
Yep, it mounts the same as like a stock suspension center shock.
All right, so while we're here and we're taking shots of this thing, you guys can already tell this is all anodized red and black. And with the wrap that we've already got going on this sled, it's going to look just absolutely awesome. But let's talk a little bit about sort of how you guys came up with the glide and just kind of point out a couple of different benefits. I realize that there's a lot of them and I could jump in here too, but let's just talk a little bit about how the glide came about and what the advantages are to the rider.
So like the motivation behind developing the TRF glide suspension initially was to develop a good hill climb suspension to replace the Easy Ride. Easy Ride quit producing suspensions a few years back, and more or less we dabbled with a few different like Polaris configurations, totally different, like more like a snowcross suspension. And over the years we kind of moved this way due to the capacity and the ride characteristics of the suspension. What we found through the development and riding the skid is, one, you can have any adjustability you want between limiter strap or using the quick link in the back to adjust wheelie or make it more planted so it doesn't wheelie as much, to just trying to build a really durable yet cool suspension. Another thing we got is the geometry holes on the rear shock that allow you to stiffen or soften your suspension very quickly just with one bolt, and each hole adjusts about 10 to 15% softer or stiffer on which way you go with it.
Nice, so it's highly adjustable, and even though you guys designed this initially around the race course, I gotta tell you from my own experience how good it is in the backcountry. Like, at what point did you guys discover just how rad of a skid it was gonna be for backcountry use as well?
Honestly, just like 2 years ago, we developed for racing. We're trying to push forward that way, and then we just started riding it in the backcountry more, and it really became really clear that it was honestly a better backcountry skid than it was necessarily a racing skid initially. Like, it performed way better in the backcountry comparatively to other suspensions available, stock included, and it just was very clear. Rider fatigue, ease of how easy it is to initiate and hold side hills going across old ruts, ice, let's say hitting stumps and stuff like that on the race course. The Skid is just more compliant.
Perfect.
And then also more plush down the trail.
Plush.
You know?
Yeah, I would agree with all of those things. And just watching your career and just seeing just how, in a lot of ways, violent you are in the race course, you've certainly proven the durability of the Glide. And you can tell with its design and with obviously the products and even the types of metals and everything else that you guys have chosen to use here. I mean, you've put this thing through its paces big time.
Yes, we have. You know, the Glide's been in development for 6 years now. I believe we're going on 6 years, but it's been racing for 3 of those. And, you know, obviously we've had failures and things come up along the way, but through the years we've always had the idea of trying to build a very durable, long-lasting suspension that a person would be able to, especially in a backcountry scenario, be able to purchase one skid and be able to probably swap it between 2 or 3 sleds before looking to purchase another Glide.
Absolutely. Well, cool, man. Well, we talked about this being an install video, so let's get the wrenches out and let's get this other stock skid torn out, and then let's put this bad boy in. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right. Okay, so first step is undoing the 17 millimeter bolts of the skid, and we're going to go ahead and tip this sled on its side and remove the stock skid. So at this point, guys, you're using an impact, a 17. If you've not done this ever before, there are plenty of videos out there of how to get your stock skid frame up and out. And just like that. Okay, so now we've got the stock skid out. Justin, what's the first move to putting the Glide skid in?
So here we have the mounting bracket, and it self-aligns itself via this half moon and then this obtuse angle that mounts against the rear drop bracket.
Yeah, look at that. So you guys have thought of everything. It sits right in there. And is there a specific, you can just follow that. You can follow that channel right there. I see.
Yep, and basically you just set it in there, it self-aligns. I usually try to just make sure it has a little bit of down pressure, that way it's seated against this and against this half moon up in the front bracket.
Okay.
And then, then you're good too.
And do you have a special tool to hold it there? Could you use a C-clamp? Could you use any kind of a...
Yep, so we got some C-clamps or vice grip.
Oh, I like that you're
Cardboard
thinking that you're
there.
using a little cardboard.
Protect the wrap.
Perfect.
Once we have it there, put a little down pressure on it. Crimp that on. And do the same on this side. Recommend having 2 of these.
Perfect.
And you're good to go.
All right, and then what is the drill bit size that we're about to use?
So use a 3/16 drill bit.
Okay.
Because we'll be installing 3/16 rivets.
And I noticed that you've put your safety glasses on. Way to go there.
Yeah. Don't want to get in trouble with OSHA.
Well, if you're ready to go, you can go ahead and start that drilling process.
Okay. And I typically like to do a couple, and then I'll put a couple rivets in just so there is no possibility. Yeah, let's grab the deburr tool.
All right, so you're gonna deburr a little.
Yeah.
Okay.
Use this to deburr it a little bit. Quality.
Yeah. And while we're talking about this piece, what is it about this piece? Why does this have to get mounted into the tunnel?
So this mounts the center main shaft of the suspension in this hole right here. And this isolates the front and the rear suspension. So like the center shock and the rear shock operate independently of each other.
Got it. So if a guy was gonna take his glide skid from one sled to the other, he'd basically have to either remove this piece or get a separate set so that he'd have it. Yeah.
Yes.
Got it. Justin, I see that you're putting the rivets on from the inside of the tunnel out and then going to the outside. Why is that?
So your track's running through here, and then also the snow and everything. This, the outside rivets end up really close to the board, so they don't interfere with your feet or anything that way. And that way nothing can get caught up on the rivets, track.
Oh yeah, I get it. So if it was the other way, much like a lot of bumper bolts, they'll start tearing onto those edges of the track.
Yeah, kind of like these, see how these rivets are coming in? Now this is well above where the track runs, but these rivets are right where the track runs. You can see the wear marks right there.
Makes a ton of sense. Okay. Well, we got that part, so you'll run along there. What do you have? 1, 2, 3, 4,
There's
5,
8
6.
total.
There's 8 total. So 8 rivets to put this piece in. Again, he's using the seat clamps to keep it tight. It self-aligns itself. Hopefully everybody can see that that thing just sits right in there. So you can't get it wrong. You guys have already done all of that work for you. Perfect. Okay, Justin, so we've got the one side on, and now you've already positioned the second side. And we wanted to just make a quick note that there is a right and left side to this, and how do you distinguish between them?
Yes, there is a right and left. So when you receive the brackets, they're going to come with this outer diamond plate that's riveted on. That should be on the outside towards your running board on Polaris sleds.
Okay.
And towards the inside on Ski-Doo.
Okay.
And Lynx.
That makes sense. All right. So that's the easy way to do it. So there's not actually a letter or anything that references it. You just make sure that those are on the outside on the Polaris sleds. Got it.
Correct.
Cool. So same song, second verse, right? We just go ahead and mount that up. Mounts in the exact same spot. You guys can see this section right here is just so cool that you guys have already made that cut. So you can just lay it in there. You don't really need a measuring tape or anything like that.
Nope, it's self-aligned, so it's you know, it's not like the older skids, like an Easy Ride where you had to get the tape measure out or the big calipers and go and make sure your measurements are correct and then hope that it all worked out when you're done. So
Nice.
It's as easy and painless as we could make it.
Okay. All right, so these guys have their little deburring tool from the 3/16 drill bits. Justin, how often is it that you've got your dad working with you?
Every day.
Every day. All right, so final cleanup, guys, before we go ahead and mount the skid inside of here. Just got some shavings in there. I got my main man, Willis. All right. All right, so center shock is installed. Now Justin, with the help of this guy right here, needs no introduction, but I'll give it anyway, Stephen Marlene. You are holding up the back end of this, get those Allen head and bolts put on, and what position, since we've talked about it, what position are you gonna go ahead and put that in?
We're gonna go in the middle. That's the way the skids come assembled
Okay.
from TRF.
Yeah, it's important to talk about that, Justin, that when you buy a skid through you guys use exit shocks. And when you purchase the skid, you'd really want them to, buy it with that suspension. And so if they did that, right, it comes installed.
Yeah, so the exit shocks come installed. Well, if you buy the suspension from us, we recommend you either can run the exit shocks or you can get Fox floats for it. We don't recommend running any other shocks because they have not proven to
Yeah, it's just not what you've
perform
tested.
and ride well.
Okay.
So these Fox floats ride really well. We also offer the exit shocks, and when you buy a skid directly through us, they will come with the exit shocks.
Okay.
And they would come in, set up in the middle position. So when you receive the skid, you're going to come in the middle, and then you can adjust it stiff or soft to your preference.
Awesome. All right, Justin, so we've got the shocks installed on the glide skid, almost ready to go back into the snowmobile. And I noticed that you're putting the new Polaris Scratchers. So for 2024, Polaris created these Scratchers, and I think everybody can agree that it's just a better Scratcher.
Absolutely. You know, we've been running a Skidoo style Scratcher, and up till this year, that was, I would say, about the best Scratcher out there. But these new ones from Polaris are really good, and we've seen pretty consistently that the sleds run 20 to 30 degrees cooler with them. So we're making the jump. As of next year, we'll be offering our glide suspensions with the Polaris Scratcher.
Well, it makes perfect sense. You've already got the best skid. You may as well put the best Scratcher on it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I noticed too, you're putting some red Loctite on those bolts. Is there anything else, so you're doing that on the Scratcher bolts, anything else on the glide skid that you guys would recommend Loctite of any kind, or is there something that these guys, anybody that buys one of these should check sort of periodically throughout their season of riding?
So, I mean, every ride I recommend just taking a quick look at your skid. We try to position so all the bolts are all going the same way. So you can look on one side of the suspension and see whether or not any nut has come loose. Every bolt is a through bolt, so we're minimizing the potential of the shaft spinning or anything like that to cause a bolt to come loose and come out.
Makes sense. Awesome.
As far as the Loctite question, everything's a nylock. The only bolt I would say we should probably put some blue Loctite on would be the bolts to mount the suspension in the tunnel.
Okay.
But other than that, shouldn't be necessary. I guess on the ice scratcher as well, we put
Yeah.
some red
Right
on
there.
the ice scratcher because these don't come in and out at all.
Okay, go for it. Yeah, so for those at home and you're watching, you guys, you know, you can put the skid back in the snowmobile with it on its side. We just happen to have a hoist that we can put this thing up in the air, and it's just a lot easier in terms of being able to install this. So if you don't have that, know that you can put it in on its side, but this is the way that we're going to show it since we have the luxury of having the hoist. All right, let's go ahead and install the glide skid into this 165 boost.
Ready?
So pretty important to note that you guys put that in the back first and then had one person kind of hold back on the track and then pull all that slack out of there and just drop her in. That looked relatively simple. Okay.
Ready?
All right, so just as simple as just holding up that front torque arm and getting that front position bolt already started.
The reason why we like doing it this way is because you're able to do it by hand, get it started. That way you don't cross thread any of the threads going in.
Makes sense.
Keeps those nice.
All right, so you've got the front installed hand tight. You guys are just simply able to just hold up that rear arm.
Yep, and everything should go in easy. If you're fighting to get it in, either your track tension's too tight, so you need to loosen those up, or assess other stuff, because it should be easy, it shouldn't be hard.
Awesome.
You'll want to go from the front to the rear and then to the middle.
Okay.
That's the sequence, and same sequence when removing the skid. Middle, rear, front.
Got it.
Now, once you have your bumper height roughly at the right place, you'll want to use your quick link to adjust this middle arm.
Okay, yeah.
So you'll watch him line that up.
So watch how that rolls. So I'm twisting it.
Okay, I'm
And it's
good.
rolling it into place.
Oh, that's cool.
Again, shouldn't be fighting it. All you gotta do is adjust that and it'll roll it right into place.
All right, so we are kind of in the final stages. Got the glide skid installed. Everything checks out. And the last little detail here is to go ahead and torque those suspension bolts down. And because you guys offer this with your, what is the size of that Allen?
It's 5/16 or 8mm.
An 8mm Allen. And what's the recommended torque spec?
So we recommend to torque it to 46 foot-pounds.
Awesome.
And then put a dab of blue Loctite on it as well.
Okay. All right, so now that everything is torqued down, next move, Justin?
We'll go through and tighten our track. Basically the same as stock. Go
Okay.
through, tighten it up, get it to where it's got a little bit of slack in the bottom there on the track, and then we recommend using a tape measure and referencing side to side. Make sure it's the same.
Awesome.
Uses very similar track tensioning, 10mm 16 to tension the track.
Yep.
Very similar to stock.
And is this outer bolt on this axle? And is that an Ice Age axle or is that your guys'
That
axle?
is our axle.
Okay.
We run the Hellfire wheels.
Yep.
That bolt runs an 8mm Allen with a 17 nut.
Got it. Yeah, and to your point that we were talking about earlier, everything is a nylock, and then all of the bolts running the same direction. All right. Get it set up. All right, Justin, so we've got the glide skid put in. And I know we're going to talk a bit about this, the quick link here, and then just the adjustability of this, as well as just some service things that we should note with the glide skid. But let's go ahead and talk about the adjustability with this quick link.
So with the quick link, it's got two heim joints and then this rod. The rod's threaded, one right, one left-handed thread. So you have this jam nut. You want to break that. Come on. So once you got that broke,
Yeah, perfect.
then you can adjust it in or out. And what this does is it gives the sled more or less wheelie via using the rear scissor ride height. So you're adjusting that, basically your bumper height, you're raising and lowering it to adjust how the sled is gonna wheelie and perform through the snow.
Nice.
And what's kind of cool about that is typically you do that via your limiter strap up there on like a stock skid frame or other suspensions.
Yeah.
By doing it in the rear, you're not screwing up the front. So your ski to the center track geometry isn't getting screwed up. So it's gonna feel better on edge, easier to initiate in turns. You're not gonna affect that near as much by doing it in the rear versus in the front.
That's nice. You can make these adjustments here and it's not having a drastic effect on the front end of the snowmobile.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So while we're doing this, and we'll just simplify this, in terms of, you know, you've undone your jam nut, that you've got your quick link. I can tell right now that you've got very little thread showing. So what position is this set in right now?
So right now this is actually a little bit in party mode. And how I reference that is actually according to the scissor angle. So
yeah.
the more you stand that up, so now you can really see, we kind of had it covered up with the jam nut.
Yeah, there it is.
But so as I tighten that up, see how the scissor stands up more?
Here you go.
And so the more I stand that scissor up, the more it is going to be in like a pro, more planted,
Okay.
get it done position. So like this would be pretty tractor, get it done. We're not looking to have as much fun right here. Just get the ride, like this would be like an adventure day where you're covering some ground and don't necessarily want the sled really long.
Yeah, and that's a great way to reference that from that rear scissor just being straight, nearly straight up and down like that.
Yes.
And is that how it is on a stock skid?
That's how it would come from us, more or less.
Okay.
We would set it where that was more at a neutral position, more in the right, closer to a pro, how a pro would ride.
Right.
Where if you want it to be more like chaos, obviously, you show more thread, roll that back, and by doing that, it's tightening and lowering.
You can
the
already
ride.
tell it's just changing that angle.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And put
Okay.
it more in wheelie mode.
All right, so that's perfect. What else in terms of adjustments? I know we've talked about that. I know we've got this low hole that's here. Is there a recommendation here in terms of anybody in that adjustment? If somebody's wanting to, balance out the machine, maybe even get a little bit more ski lift, do you recommend doing that with that front torque bolt?
Yeah, so
Torque arm?
if you didn't know, you have this stock mounting hole, but there's actually a hole right below it that you can mount in as well. And with our rail tip profile and stuff, you're able to run in that hole. Now with the Fox shocks, they come in a chaos configuration length. So I'd recommend actually moving it to that lower hole with Fox shock setup. With the exit shocks, our front center shock with the exits is 1.5 inches longer. So you don't have to drop that out to get it to be more playful. But if you want to, or if you're wanting to be more playful, you can.
Nice.
What's another thing that's cool is if you're running these tall spindle kits, let's say like the Elevate kit that Ice Age offers, you can drop that out. And with our suspension, the way it works, it complements that Ice Age Elevate kit really nicely because you're able to get everything on the same plane basically.
Yeah,
so
makes
it's
sense.
Not forcing more ski pressure on the sled.
Awesome. So we've got some adjustments, and again, guys, we'll put some air pressures in the drop down of just sort of the baseline settings that these guys have come up with that Fox air shock. Obviously, these guys in their recommendation is either to use that shock or the exit shocks that I would assume are just valved to you guys' spec so that you know that this skid operates the way you guys have tested it. So that's all awesome. In terms of servicing this, I've noticed that there's no actual grease zerk on this skid. What do you guys recommend and what do you use there?
So everything's got a Delrin bushing in it. So durability is really good. That way it comes pre-greased, ready to go. I'd recommend at least once or twice a season go through and grease the skid though. So on every shaft, there's gonna be a little hole drilled in them. On this pull rod, back here on the scissor, there's a little hole on each side. And what you'll wanna get is it's called a needle greaser. And so you'll take that needle greaser, adapt it to your grease gun, and go through and just touch a little bit of grease in each shaft just to keep it from squawking at you and giving you a little bit of feedback. More or less, once it starts, give it squeaking a little bit, just put a little grease in it, then you're good to go.
Awesome. Okay. Sounds good. Let's get this sled upright, and I think we're about wrapped up, Justin. I'm ready to go ride this thing.
Sounds good.
All right, Justin, so we are wrapped up with the skid install. And before we go, I just want you to kind of speak about the advantage to the rider and why the glide skid is a performance part. There are so many aftermarket companies that are out there that are supplying all kinds of different things. Everybody is really focused on weight, but really the geometry of a lot of these aftermarket skids that are out there, they're not really changing much from what the factory is. Kind of talk about the glide skid and the advantage to the rider and what the rider is, maybe supposed to feel and why that's there.
Yeah, so with the glide, the whole goal with it was to create a very plush, very easy to ride, very intuitive, just confidence-inspiring suspension that enabled the rider to, build that 900 mod, but then be able to ride that 900 mod because the suspension could be tuned to handle power. And it goes vice versa, a 650, let's say, or a 600, you can make this suspension playful, which would make that sled more playful, where in a stock configuration with other suspensions, you're kind of stuck with what they got. That's one cool thing is you can adjust the glide so much to make it do whatever you want it to do.
Nice. So for the rider that is maybe just starting out, wants some performance upgrades to the snowmobile. It's crazy that everybody chases motor work. Everybody always wants to make things faster or louder or things like that, and they rarely focus on suspension. So to have a performance part that is actually really adjustable for that intro rider, you know, what is he expecting to feel with the glide skid, and why, with even being a novice rider, is there an advantage to them?
So when you get a skid from TRF, it would come set up in the middle. So that'd be middle setting, middle in terms of playfulness to planet, and then terms of like plush, right in the middle. So hopefully not too soft and not too stiff. The idea is for a suspension, like if you just purchased this from us, you'd hop on it and you go down a bumpy trail, let's say. You should notice it be substantially more compliant, much plusher ride, and then also like coming through corners and things like that, the sled shouldn't push as much, should be a lot more true.
Nice.
And the same thing when it comes to like deep snow performance. We find between what I've felt in all of our test riders, and pretty much everybody that's ridden it notices right off the bat, is how quick it gets up on the snow, how quick it gets speed, it planes out, it doesn't trench near as much. How it, like initiation on a side hill is a little easier. So like rider fatigue is a big deal at the end of the day, because everybody is just like, man, I wish I had more fuel because I could do more riding.
Nice. So for the beginner guy, it's awesome, and then the intermediate to advanced riders, the adjustability and the way that you can adjust that quick link, and you can turn really any sled into kind of whatever you want it. So if you wanted a sled that was a shorter sled to get down to business, you can adjust it that way. If you've got a longer sled and you want to turn it into party mode or have some of that ski lift, you kind of got something for every ability level of a rider, which is cool.
Absolutely, you know, now you're starting to get into like intermediate and like, let's say pro level guys too, where now you can talk about snow conditions or what kind of riding you're doing that day, so you can adjust the sled to be in party mode. Or let's say you're planning on covering 100 miles today and you're getting from point A to point B, and you don't have time to really play around too much. You got to cover ground, so you can put the sled in a position that's really efficient, gets over the snow, and you're not going to spend as much time and fuel getting places.
Awesome, awesome. And then to the performance guys that are out there, you know, is this a suspension that it works really well on a boost, on a 9R, on an 850, or is there a specific thing that you guys were chasing? Obviously, this skid is race inspired. Everything that you do on the race course is about being as fast as you can. So I'm sure at a performance level, you know, you guys designing this thing around big power, but how does it work on an aspirated sled?
It works really well, because like with all the adjustability in the suspension, you can tune it to what the power output is. So let's say we put it in a 600. Obviously it's not making the ground speed, the power of a 900 mod, that I'm racing on the race course. So, but what's cool is you can adjust the suspension, soften it, and allow it to rock back to make the snowmobile playful. And you can still do hopovers and re-entries on a 600, where in other configurations like stock, you're gonna really struggle doing that unless you got like the perfect snow conditions that allow for it.
That's awesome.
And that's what's cool, is like even for snow conditions, you can adjust for that.
That's cool. And you guys have obviously got quite a few of these skids in stock in various colors. It's really cool to see all the different colors, including the one that we did today with just that anodized red rail. And then you guys got all kinds of different options with the wheels. You guys are going to run exit shocks as the primary, but then like the skid we did today, you guys have those modifications that we've made to run the Fox float, so that's pretty awesome. Well, I certainly appreciate you taking your time, buddy, and I'm excited as all get out to go ride that thing.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, guys, well, there you have it. I apologize for some of the camera angles. I was trying to do this one myself, but we got that skid installed on that 165 boost. Big thanks to Justin and Tyson Thomas of Thomas Racing Factory for coming over here and helping us with this install video. I know it's going to help them as well. We're going to go ahead and install another one on a 55, which is going to be pretty sweet for me. But just want to thank you guys all for watching. In the drop down, we will have a tool list as well as information on how to get a hold of these guys if you want a skid of your own, and know that I will be selling them here through the Next Level shop. So leave those questions, those comments below. We love you guys, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.